Podcast. I'm with Josiah Lilly today. Josiah is going to take us through his interesting story and the way he's built a number of successful businesses in different industries, and looking forward to learning more about him. So thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm honored to be part of this podcast.
Awesome. So why don't you start out with kind of where you're from and kind of your backdrop story, how you grew up and moved into entrepreneurship.
So I was born in Tennessee. My mom's from Tennessee. My dad's from West Virginia. Born in Tennessee, lived there for a couple years. Then we moved to West Virginia, was there till I was about 11, and then moved to California at 11. So I kind of really feel like I grew up in California. More of my background is in Southern California. I was born into a very religious family. My parents are very, very devout Jehovah's Witnesses, and my great-grandfather started the second congregation ever in 1800 and something.
Wow.
So our family goes back to basically the roots. So I was raised in a very religious household. That was a huge part of my life growing up as a youth. You know, a lot of the door-to-door ministry, a lot of public speaking, all that kind of stuff. That was a big part of. We kind of moved out to California to get my dad was having some anxiety and some work issues that was overstressing him, and kind of having a little bit of an emotional, almost a breakdown in West Virginia. So we moved out here to get away from. We had a lot of the family there, and then just to have a break for them. So it was at that point, I kind of started to really form. I feel like more of my identity out here, in California.
So that's a big difference. So I'm from the East Coast as well. I'm from upstate New York. So tell me what it was like, first getting out to Southern California when you're in West Virginia and Tennessee, which now Tennessee is a pretty booming hotspot, but back then really wasn't, right? So what was the childhood transition like?
It was, I think just being around so many different cultures was a huge, aspect of it, which was a wonderful aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
It's one thing I really appreciate. I'm really grateful that we did move out here. I can't imagine actually being raised in West Virginia my whole life. So I'm very appreciative that we did move out here. But yeah, seeing so many different cultures that you don't see, they're just basically more of a, Caucasian.
White people?
Yeah, a lot of white people. So yeah, that was one really, really cool thing, was being around so many different types of people, being able to get on our bicycle and ride all around with my brother. I started a paper route. So my entrepreneurial journey started probably when I moved to California, because I started a paper route when I was, I think, 11. Then I started cutting grass when I was, I think, 12 or 13. I'd get accounts. I had some other kids, paid them to even cut them for me. I'd go and build out other accounts. So I was always kind of a hustler since I was very young. Business always appealed to me. And
do you think that was genetically just in you, or was it more environmental? Your parents encouraged it, or a combination thereof? Or?
I think it was just genetically in me. Yeah. I've always been that way. My brother and I are very different. I've always been super motivated, very, very driven. My parents really aren't entrepreneurial. My mom's side of the family was. My dad's side was definitely not. I'm definitely a lot more like people always compare me to my uncle, who was a very pretty dynamic businessman, knew a lot of people, was a fast talker, always working hard, doing deals and helping people out. And a lot of people compared me to him growing up. That you're just like your uncle. His name is Marvin, and how I dealt with people, my drive. Talk too fast, and amongst other things.
I share that problem. Blessing and curse. Right?
Yes. But I think in me, it's always just been there. I remember going once to snowboarding, as I was thinking I was like 14, and I went up to Big Bear with a bunch of friends and realized you could buy student lift tickets for, at the time, probably like $30, whereas adult was like 50. Yeah. So I'd go and buy 10 at a time, go in the parking lot, sell them to people who were like, 28. And, I made like $1,500 in like 2 hours. And my friend's like, dude, what are you doing? I'm like, just go ride a few rides. I'll see you guys in a couple hours.
That's awesome.
I made $1,500. Like, I've always my mind's just kind of always gone there.
So how did that play in your household? You said your parents are very, very, very religious, and then you're entrepreneurial and you're hustling and moving and grooving. Did that create any conflict, or was there support for that? Or
it didn't create any conflict. What's interesting about, that religion is what's challenging about it, looking back, is the philosophies that the world is ending, right? We're living in the last days. Mm-hmm. And so your focus needs to be on doing whatever is, God's will, so that when Armageddon comes, you survive it. You live in this, because they believe in a future of a paradise on earth, like the Garden of Eden, right? So you shouldn't put too much. So like secular education outside of high school was not at that time, at least, encouraged. Like going to college wasn't really an option. So you're kind of just thinking about doing whatever it takes to provide for your family, make sure everyone can eat. but not putting any, all the rest of the time should be focused on doing, spiritual things,
Sure.
right? Religious things. So it didn't really create a conflict because my vision was limited, right? I always knew I was going to provide and be a hard worker and build some kind of a business, but it was a means to an end, right? It wasn't like I'm going to build this empire and, build wealth and build. It was more about I'm going to provide wealth for my family with the idea that, we're in the last days and et cetera.
So what was kind of one of the first ahas where that vision started to expand?
That's a good question. I could tell you how the kind of my career started.
Sure.
Maybe that might be easier. So I was 16 and I got a job from someone in the congregation doing stucco because my parents didn't have a lot of money. Because they had a similar mindset. They weren't focused on secular things. And I got a job doing stucco, and just it was a means to an end. I could pay for my clothes, pay for this piece of crap truck I had. And the second day on the job, the tile guy approached me and goes, "Hey, can you read a tape measure?" And I was like, "Of course I can read a tape measure. Who can't read a tape measure?"
Probably most people.
He said, he said, my helper can't. He can't read it. So why don't you quit doing tile, or quit doing stucco rather, and come back to work for me tomorrow doing tile. And I was like, and I've always been really creative. I've loved design, loved art. And I thought, yeah, tile seems way more in line with my interests than, stucco is boring, right? It's a creative trade. So I said, sure. So I came back to work for him the next day doing tile. And I was 16. And I started asking him lots of questions like, why are you doing this? What's this method? Just trying to understand, the basics of what we were doing. And so after about a year of taking a lot of mental notes and just paying attention, when I was 17 is when I started my first company. So I took my GED.
So take me through that. You ended high school early then.
Yeah, I took my GED to start my company.
That's fantastic. That's amazing.
So I was doing, for high school, I actually did homeschool. So you would go into school. There's a local school you would go to for one day a week, get all your homework, do it at home, come back in, check in with the teacher. And I was doing that.
My kids did that all through 8th grade between COVID and there. So yeah, that's interesting.
So I was doing that because from the time I was 14 until I was 23, I dedicated 90 hours a month going door to door. 90 hours a month from the 14 to 23. So this doing my high schooling at home allowed me to split my time between the ministry and also working.
And when you say door to door, that's for the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's
90 hours per month.
Per month.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it's basically like a part-time job.
Sure.
It's over 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
So it was a huge part of my life for until I walked away from that in my mid to late 20s.
Now, I'm sure that instilled a work ethic, right?
It did. And yeah, and when you're going, it's the work ethic. Also, you learn how to deal with people.
You're selling.
You're going to someone's house on a Saturday morning talking about God, right? Last thing you want to talk about is God, and they don't want you at their house Saturday morning. So you're going into a pretty hostile environment. And you're trying to, calm people down, find common ground with them. So
you're overcoming objections very quickly.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I was telling my kids about sales, and I said, everyone's in sales. We had an open house in here for the high school. So we had 5 groups of about 25, 30 kids come through. So we had 100 and some odd kids in different waves. And we made it about business and entrepreneurship and tech tools and everything. And, they said, well, what's the number one skill that I need to have? And I said, sales. And most people have a negative connotation to sales, right? It's like, oh, sleazy salesperson, used car dealer, et cetera. I said, you're all in sales. I said, your parents are in sales. We're constantly trying to sell you kids on, how to keep your shit together, et cetera. You kids are in sales. You're manipulating us to get what you want, and so you've got to be a salesperson, right? So I have to imagine 90 hours a month of going door to door probably turned you into a pretty exceptional salesperson at a pretty young age.
Yeah, I think you learn people skills, right? I think, which is what sales is all about, right? So I think that's what you learn. So yeah, I'm sure that helped refine me and my ability to deal with people that either, a lot of objections, not the best environment, give you the courage to, go out there and, talk about things that might not be the most pleasant thing to talk about.
Yep, makes sense. All right, so you start your own business at 17. You basically cash out of high school, get your GED, and you're going into business for yourself. So tell me the kind of growth, how that took place, and the grind that was like.
So when I was 19, I actually moved to the Caribbean because I had a couple of my buddies had finished high school as well. We wanted to do something kind of to help support. We wanted something adventurous, but that would support the church. Mm-hmm. So we found a little area in the British Virgin Islands, a congregation that needed support. So we moved down there when I was 19. I lived there with those guys for about 9 months, and then moved to Puerto Rico because it's the British Virgin Islands. So you can't. It was really expensive. Everything was expensive down there. So we had saved up money, and we lived like in an apartment attached to the Kingdom Hall, which is like the church of the religion. And they basically just dedicated our time to basically more or less supporting the congregation and the ministry. And as funds ran out, I ended up moving to Puerto Rico and lived in Puerto Rico for almost 2 years. And then I did tile and stone there. So I kind of really did I worked here for a little bit, for a couple of years. Then I was in the Caribbean. There, worked in Puerto Rico for a couple of years. And when I moved back here, and that would have been like 95. 95. That's when I kind of really started my.
And you're working in Puerto Rico for someone else, or you set up your own shop there as well?
No, I worked for myself for there. Yeah, just found people who needed tile and stonework there, and just kind of started building a little.
So from an advice standpoint, so if you were to impart to younger people, how do you do that? Most people, they have this limiting belief in front of them, and that they've got to go a traditional path, or they got to work for somebody else, and they got to try to get some promotions. They maybe have an opportunity to move out on their own. It sounds like you've been able to just start from scratch multiple times. What's the secret sauce to that, if anything?
I think find what you're interested in, what you're passionate about, because I think once you find something that you're passionate about, it'll be easier to find opportunities to make money in that. And then that's going to give you enough, I think, satisfaction and joy. You'll receive enough in doing so that it'll keep you going, because there's going to be really hard times when you're going to want to quit. You're going to want to throw in the towel. It's not going to be worth it. But if you're doing something in a field that you really enjoy, in a perfect world, then that eliminates or that minimizes those days.
So you're back in the States, right? You've taken Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and now you're back to California?
Back to California. I moved back for my wife at the time.
Got it. So then what happened there when you got to California?
So I got to California, and I just started building the business. I would go around to tile stores and drop off cards and tell them if they have anyone that's purchasing materials, needs a good installation company. This is who we were. I remember hiring my first real employee, because my brother worked for me for a while. So my first non-family employee, and I just remember the feeling, the responsibility, the heavy responsibility that he was going to feed his family and pay his rent based on working with me. So I told him, look, I've got work today, I've got work this week. I don't know about next week, but I will do my best. And I just somehow found a way to keep us busy and started slowly building up the company. And at first, we just did tile installation, and then for like the slab fabrication component, because most of what we do, it's all residential. I'd say 90% residential, and it's all high end. So it's the tile installation as well as stone fabrication and installation. So the fabrication component, I used to subcontract out back in the day, and then I would do the tile portion. So it'd all be under our contract, but I had kind of the two different aspects of what was in-house and then what we subbed out.
And did you hone in on the high end right from the beginning, or did you fall into that over experience?
I wasn't not to the level we are now, because now we're doing $100 million houses. We're doing crazy stuff. So it wasn't, but I've always been a person who wanted to do something of high quality. Like I never wanted to go into production. I was never an idea of start to be a commercial tile guy or go to malls. It was always something custom, unique. And my father taught me very young, if you're going to do something, do it right.
So that creativity and design eye and whatnot, it kind of gravitated you there naturally as well.
Yeah, and I've always been a bit of a perfectionist, and I like being challenged. So I like when we're doing hard projects that we got to figure out how to make it happen. So that aspect, the more custom, unique, bespoke projects always kind of spoke to me.
Well, and I think they really work from a business standpoint. I'm going to see Alex Hormozi in January in Vegas, and he's, this big marketing guy online. And one of the things he always talks about is find something you're going to sell to wealthy people, right? Because you're going to have insulation from kind of the natural macroeconomic ups and downs. Very wealthy people generally are going to spend money, right? But even more than that is, when you're doing a project with them, it's not a large chunk of their net worth or their disposable income, et cetera, right? Even if we're doing, we do flooring here. So if we're doing a $70,000 floor, but they're putting in a $30 million house, it's a rounding error, right? So you're not nickeled and dimed, and also they're not as generally kind of all over you for all the little details, right? Obviously if you do a quality product, if you've got problems with product or service or installation, then you're going to have headaches, right? But when you're able to kind of find your niche and carve out that very high end, if you can over service and really drive quality and design and service, you can build a real name for yourself in a very high end of the market where you can really drive good margins. At least that's been my experience. I'm assuming you've had some similar experiences.
Yeah, I think being definitely the wealthy clients. A house could go from maybe potentially being their dream house to maybe it could flip, become like in a down economy, right? Even when things get tough, you'll see some shifts, but they're minimal and they're nothing compared to the projects don't stop. The worst case scenario, like I said, it goes from them building their dream house to maybe a house that they're going to sell until things change. But yeah, but for the most part, it's pretty insulated. I mean, if it's hitting us, then we're all in trouble.
Yeah, for sure.
This is the billionaires of the world.
So when you look at the growth of your business, has it been generally linear, or have there been a few hockey stick moments where you've stumbled into something or figured something out where you've been able to scale at a more aggressive rate than normal?
I think it's been pretty linear because the challenge with us trying to grow too fast is finding qualified guys.
Yeah,
right?
Especially the installation side, right?
Because only probably realistically 20% of the guys out there who install tile could probably work for us,
right,
as they are right now, right? We could train them all because it's such a high level, such detail. Even we've brought people over from other companies that are also supposed to be on par with us as far as quality, and even those guys have come over and said like, wow, you guys are on a whole different level.
And that pool of workers, I'm sure, has deteriorated over the last 10 or 20 years as well, right?
Yeah, it's only getting worse. It's scary. What we have facing us as far as the high-end trades people, because everyone want to go be in tech or be in some other some sexier trade than
right,
construction. So good tradespeople are becoming harder and harder to find.
Yeah, we have that same problem here. Taylor, who does the editing over here, she posted a video last week, and it shows some of the technology in the factory. And you look in the comments on Instagram, and they're all hate comments, like getting rid of jobs, F you, the end of the society, blah, blah. And, what I explain, we obviously respond to every comment in whatever positive way we can, is one, we continue to create jobs through growth in the business, right? So these robots are not to replace people, but they're the only way we can facilitate growth, because it's very hard to find qualified machine operators, right? Somebody who wants to be in a factory at 5:30 in the morning every day, running industrial equipment. There's not a line of people beating down my door to do that. Everybody thinks they're a social media influencer, or they're going to be the next, Jeff Bezos or whatever. So,
well, I'll tell you what. When it comes to the trade and what we do, AI is going to be we're the most insulated group from being replaced by AI. They talk about these guys who are in tech and these other aspects of business. They're going to be taken over by AI very quickly.
Yep.
Whereas if you're in the trade, actually installing and doing the kind of things that we're doing, we're going to be the more insulated. I'm not saying it's not going to impact us, but I think there's a bigger opportunity in the trade right now.
Yeah, I'm encouraged by that. When that high school group came through, I told you about, there's kids in there that are now going into the trades. The electricians are making $150,000, $200,000 a year. Plumbers are making $180,000 a year. And they were actually sharing a statistic with me that this is over at Orange Lutheran. So one of the Trinity, it's a private school. You would think everyone goes to college, right? But just in the last 7 years, they went from 93% of the students going to a 4-year university afterwards down to 81%. And you say, well, what are these kids doing? But it's not a negative thing. It's not like they're unemployed or they're just hanging out in their mom's basement. They're going and they're getting vocational training and they're figuring out how to take a different path, whether it's straight into entrepreneurship or going to learn how to be a CNC operator, an electrician, those types of things. So my hope is there'll be a resurgence in trades because, to your point, I think it's much more resilient in the face of the AI technology that's coming. I've got 3 teenagers and I want to make sure that they have opportunities, and I'm explaining them all the time. Again, sales, I think no matter how much technology, and we use a ton of it here to do social media and digital marketing and whatnot, but I think that customer intimacy that comes from a human-to-human interaction, that can't be faked or replaced, right? So there's always going to be a value in someone that's able to be right in front of a person, creating that intimate connection with them. And then secondarily to that, these trades jobs where people are really going to be in there using their hands and being intellectually smart enough to problem solve and critically think, I think there's a lot of opportunity for young people there. And it's exciting to see that at the high school level, they're seeing that happening. It was a little surprising to me to hear that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I completely agree because there's so many people now in that tech space, not to mention the ability of AI to do so much of that work. So that's become a flooded market. So now our sector has been deprived of support. So I think seeing that flip and seeing people seeing the kind of money you can make, it's supply and demand, right? So when you need all these trade being done, only a few amount of people, the price is going to go up.
Right.
It means you're going to make more money.
So you're in a bunch of different businesses. So you've kind of scaled your main business linearly. So tell me what else you got going on.
So my main company is Epic Ceramic and Stone, and that's the installation and fabrication company. And then about 15 years ago, I started a company called Famosa. And Famosa is a tile and stone store. So we don't install anything. All we do is sell tile and stone. And we cater to the trade, mainly like I would say 80% of our business, 80% of our business is the interior designers. Because they'll come shop and specify. And we'll do everything from, beautiful drawings for them. I flew to Israel for a client because we're producing a limestone floor there. I went over to go inspect it, make sure it was done to our specifications. So we'll do whatever the client needs us to do on these projects, but we don't do any installation. We just supply. And I did that because I got tired of chasing materials that were either out of clients' budgets, it was something that was no longer available. So I thought if I can create my own supply chain, I'll have more control over these costs, and I can help them value engineer better. I might know that a material out of France is, $30 a square foot, but I can get something from a neighboring country that looks very, very similar, and it's equal in quality for half the price. So I'm able to help them value engineer. So Famosa was born about 15 years ago, and then about 7 years ago, I started a company called the Slab Studio. And the Slab Studio just sells slabs. So we sell like slabs of marble, slabs of quartzite, slabs of travertine, limestone, all kinds of products, but all kinds of species of material, but it's all just slabs.
What's the main revenue driver? Is there one that drives the lion's share of the business?
So they all three operate completely independent, right? They're two completely separate corporations. Famosa is a client of both. Or rather, Epic is a client of both the Famosa and Slab Studio, but we buy from lots of other tile stores as well because, all of our projects, the designers will be the ones who specify it. So wherever they like to shop is where we ultimately buy the material from. So Epic's by far the biggest company, but it's, once again, all three revenue streams operate independently.
Independent of each other. And what's the future vision? Where do you see yourself taking this?
So I just finished a large remodel of my home. And what was really exciting for me about that is it gave me a chance to do design work. And I love design, and I'm good at it. Most of our job is to execute the designer's vision, right? They've already designed it all. We're just guys who got to make sure it's installed properly. So what I did with my house was some really, really unique designs, specifically stone related. So I'm looking forward to marketing those, and I want to personally offer more design services, to offer that as part of it, and not to compete with our designers, but to be a complement to it. Like they bring in a lighting specialist for so under their umbrella of interior design, but we could design the stone aspect for them.
And back to your original point where you said, find something you're passionate about. You're passionate about design as well. So I'm sure that keeps you emotionally and, intellectually engaged in the business and excited about it, right?
It does. And stone's being used more and more in furniture, in architectural elements, in wall features, and, and lots of other aspects of a home. I feel like you're seeing stone, even flooring. You see more stone flooring. It used to be all wood.
Don't take too much of it away from me.
I'm not. We used to be all wood. There were never houses. We hardly ever did houses with stone flooring, and now we're getting more of those than we used to. So I feel like there's a lot of opportunity there, but the design part is for sure what excites me because I'm able to look at some materials and see how they can be used in a way that a designer won't because I do it every day. I know what our machines are capable of doing. I'm always trying to test new elements on our fabrication process, new textures, new dimensional aspects of it. So I'm always kind of evolving.
Well, I think what's interesting is, wood has been very common because obviously woodworking's been around forever, and it's a very malleable substance that don't really need a lot of capital investment to figure out how to make really nice looking wood products, right? Stone is much more durable, right? And if you can find a way to create a lot of the wood looks and the design elements like you talked about, then you've got something that's low maintenance, I'm assuming, and that's appealing to people, right?
Yeah, it definitely is.
Sure. All right. So let's talk about EO a little bit. So how long have you been in EO?
I've been a member for 11 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you've been there a while. So how did you find out about it originally?
I found out about it through a friend of mine who actually wasn't even a member. This is going back probably 15 15, 16 years. It was my buddy Jared, who owns a company called J-Star Motors.
I know Jared. He's my neighbor.
Yeah. And so I've known Jared and his brothers for well over 20
Jeremy?
years. Yeah, Jeremy and Jason and Josh. So Jared had actually told me about EO because Evo, he was good friends with Evo from Commerce West. So I had a one-on-one meeting with Evo. We talked about it. I actually put on my application, went through the whole process for EO, got approved to join, and then due to financial challenges at that time, was when the market was like 2000, I guess 8, 9.
Oh, yeah.
I ended up pulling out and not being able to afford to do it. It was, I wish I would have, but in my mind, I thought, this is an extra expense I could, not spare right now. So I backed out, and then a few years later, a buddy of mine, this guy Matt, had joined, and I was like, I could look back into that, and so that was about 11 years ago, I guess.
And then you've been on the board, you've been your forum moderator, I'm sure, et cetera. Take me through some of the highlights of your experience in the chapter.
Being on the board was great. Being on the board was something I hadn't done. I did it for 2 years, and it was only a couple of years ago I did it for the first time. I think just because of being so busy, I just never thought I had the time. But I just made the time, and I really, really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because when you're in EO, you get your forum experience. Right, so you get to know the guys in your forum really well, guys or girls in your forum really well. Then you get the events, being how many you go to, but that's a limited time. So being on the board, you get your monthly board meetings, so you get extra time with people that you don't normally get to see or get to spend quality time with. Then there's some traveling involved, some additional events that you go to, so you get some really, really quality time with these people, and I really enjoyed it. And it was great to be in a position of leadership. It was challenging. So whenever you get challenged, it gives you opportunity to grow as a person. So I really enjoyed it. And EO overall, I would say, is one of the best decisions I've ever made, honestly. And I think being around so many other business leaders, I have good friends who make really good money but have a sales position, right? So they don't understand what it's like to run a business, deal with workman's comp issues, deal with employee issues, deal with cash flow, all these different challenges we deal with on a daily basis. They aren't familiar with. So now you have this group of people who are facing the same challenges you do. And I think even through osmosis, I'm sure the decisions I make are much different now than they would have been. I even had a couple of my guys tell me, this is years ago, they said, you were a good leader before, but you're a much better leader now after you join EO,
Yeah, I think it's been fantastic. This is my second year on the board, and what I've taken away most from that is leading through influence, right? So here I can basically lead through authority. I try to give people autonomy and whatnot, but at the end of the day, if I want to do something, it's going to be the way I want to do it since I'm signing the checks, right? Yeah. So on the board, you can't just go in there like a bull in a china shop and expect a bunch of other business owners to just capitulate and do whatever you want to do. So, learning how to lead through influence, I think, was helpful. The other time I had that in my life was when I went to business school. So, and when I was getting my MBA, they put us in a group of people, and all of a sudden you're not just the sharpest pencil in the barrel anymore, and you're not the brightest light bulb, right? So figuring out how to navigate that, I think, just helps you become a better leader. It helps you become more empathetic. It helps you, to your point, get around other people. So people on the board are volunteering their time to do that. So they're the leaders of leaders, right? So getting the opportunity to spend more quality time with people who step up to the plate and deliver at that level, I think, is important. So for anyone listening out there, at least looking at joining a committee, we're always looking for board members, et cetera. I think that's a good deal there. And the other thing I always say about EO is, my forum is fantastic. I would never leave it. I truly love it. But for the first 2 years in EO, it was like 80 or 90% of my chapter experience. And I think that's a big mistake. And I think a lot of chapter members fall into that, right? Where the forum is basically the whole deal. And the more I got involved in the board and in going to events, or even like joining the poker league or the fantasy football group or whatever, you get more and more contacts with people from a divergent group of industries with divergent personalities. And, as you're just having those casual conversations about challenges in your business or financial issues or family issues, et cetera, you get all these extra experience data points. And I know it helps me make better decisions, not just in my business, but in my personal and family life as well. So I think you get out what you put in, right? Yeah,
exactly. You got what you put in. And I would say unquestionably, my favorite year in EO to date would be my first year on the board. year one. Even though I kind of went to that role, kind of was a last minute thing because someone else couldn't do it last minute, so I kind of got thrown into it.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and it was a lot of work, a lot more than I actually realized. But I really enjoyed it. It was because of that connection with the other members and that quality time. And I think, and also I think the idea of just being on the board and being in a position where you're helping lead the chapter. But it was definitely the most rewarding by far.
And you've seen this chapter really grow, right? So over 11 years. Take me through what it was like at the beginning versus now.
I mean, yeah, when I first joined, I think we were under 100 people. So we were probably like around 90 or so members. Now I think we're 160, 170?
177, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, we almost doubled, probably close to doubling in size. So it's a much, much bigger chapter. I mean, there's some people are still, we still have some of the same faces there, but a lot of new faces. So that's the challenge, getting in those events, getting to know people. That's why I think the retreats are great. The retreats are really great for getting to know people. I encourage anyone who hasn't been on one of the EO retreats for sure to do that. Those are amazing experiences.
For sure. Give me an example of where you've been able to give back, you feel, to the chapter. Something that you look back and you're proud of. Whether it was a difference in an individual member or your form or the board experience.
I did the EO mentor, and I was able to work with someone in EOA, and I feel like I was able to give him some good guidance. When the first day we met, he had a couple of immediate needs, and I was able to get him like a photographer and a new banking relationship. And, just kind of by circumstance, I just happened to have those two things available to me. So that was something. He's a younger business, and I think he's leaned on me for some mentoring and for some advice, which I feel like I've been able to provide him. So that's probably the first thing I think of. I've also brought a couple of people into EO who I know it's made a big difference in their life, that are members. I have a couple other people I'm actually talking to about coming to one of our upcoming events.
Great.
Yeah.
So what excites you about the future in general? So you've come from the East Coast to the West Coast, you've built businesses, you've joined a group, you've served at a high level there. What does the next chapter of your life look like?
Well, I just got married. So that's a big change. I got married in June 27th. So that's the biggest, most exciting change. And we just finished a almost 2-year remodel on our home that we just moved into this week. So those are two big changes. But it's great having a partner that I really value their opinion. And so she's helping me and giving me some ideas on the business, on things that we can do. So I'm really excited about the design aspect. I really think that could be something big for us. I kind of want to focus on diversifying in the material supply sector, bringing in some new materials, designing some furniture out of stone. But I think doing that with my partner, my wife, is really, really exciting for me.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations.
Yeah.
Cool. So if anyone wants to find your business or find out more about you, how can they contact you?
You can email me, josiah@epicstone.net. On our Instagram, we've got, Epic Ceramic and Stone is the handle, Famosa Tile is the handle, and the slab_studio is the other handle on Instagram. So they all three are on there.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking time to come in to meet us. I think I learned some more about you that I didn't know, and really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thanks, man. Take care.